Alterous is one of those emotions that maybe feels like it has a little bit of both romantic and friendship tinges to it. The emotion might be only a little bit of romance-flavored friendship, or it has some elements of romance, but not enough elements to really feel like it fits the flavor profile of romance quite right. The word for an alterous crush is a mesh. I've felt meshes before, personally. I would spend time in my analytical mind wondering about if it was a crush or a squish. I wasn't sure. Part of me wished that this person I had a mesh on would have been compatible as a potential queer platonic partner for me. A lot of people on the aromantic spectrum experience this extra kind of emotional connection with other people that isn't quite fitting the friendship box, and it isn't quite fitting the romantic feelings box either. On a separate axis, a lot of aromantic individuals also feel like their relationships don't fit inside the traditional normative boxes our society assumes everything fits into. One being friendship, or being quote-unquote just friends, or there's dating, or being romantic partners. And by the way, you don't have to identify with aromanticism to have one of these experiences outside of the norm. People of any orientation can experience any number of these less heard of forms of emotion, attraction, and desire. Very quickly, I'll list out some of the ones you may have heard of. There's sensual, aesthetic, kink, which, yes, actually can be a separated axis of a type of attraction and desire. Platonic attraction, or having a squish, which is like a friendship crush. Intellectual attraction, which is basically an attraction to the way someone thinks and having a desire to engage with them on an intellectual level. There's also romantic. I identified for a while with the orientation label WTFromantic before the similar term quoiromantic was coined, which both are about what in the world even is romantic attraction. I don't feel like I definitely feel it, nor that I definitely don't feel it. So WTF romantic or quoiromantic is like, what? A few years after that, this term Alterous was formed, which I eventually really resonated with. And I saw someone on Twitter once say something that I think really has a lot of truth to it, which is that this Alterous term maybe captures what a lot of us were feeling when we identified with WTF romantic or quoiromantic. In a fair number of cases, I think the thing we were actually feeling was this separate thing that is alterous attraction. Or at least it's this thing that's really well captured by the term alterous. So sometimes you have emotions that don't fit into the box. And alterous is one of those emotions that maybe feels like it has a little bit of both romantic and friendship tinges to it. The emotion might be only a little bit of romance-flavored friendship, or it has some elements of romance, but not enough elements to really feel like it fits the flavor profile of romance quite right. And yes, I am saying flavored, which is very silly of me, but it's kind of a good way to describe it. It's not like there's this low to high scale where platonic is lesser than romance and romance is just the stronger friendship, like friendship grew into romance when it got stronger. That's not how this works. Sometimes friendship feelings do change form into romance, but they are different forms. So some people can have superficial, not strong romantic feelings, like a crush or a fantasy based on knowing nothing about the person except what they look like. The rest is all someone's own imagination. And that's like a lesser form of romantic feelings. And then there's also the possibility of the most intense, deep, purely platonic love, where it's like, really strong platonic feelings for a really close friend or family member. I think a really good metaphor is just that it's a different flavor. So they are different, not lesser or greater. One is not like above the other. But sometimes flavors can mix, or elements that make up a flavor could be changed to like lack one of the key components, like white chocolate. It doesn't even have cocoa in it. But otherwise, it's a lot like chocolate. And so that's why we call it that. We call it white chocolate, but it's not chocolate. It's like close to chocolate. It's its own thing. Does that make sense? I really hope so. We'll get to the relationship part. But first, let's finish focusing in on the emotions a tiny bit longer. Basically, Alterous is an emotional attraction that is hard to describe because society is used to everything fitting into either the romance box or the platonic box. And sometimes we ourselves try to shove another emotion into one of these boxes, but we can tell it feels out of place. And we can like beat ourselves up for not feeling it the right way or feel confused about it. Question our romantic orientation over it even. But it can be a beautiful, wonderful thing to find a label that fits just right. And by the way, the word crush typically is considered romantic and or sexual. And I am pretty sure, please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm happy to be educated further on this, but I'm pretty sure that it almost always implies romance, whether or not it also includes the feelings of finding the person hot or sexually attractive. I know it is possible for a person to have a romantic crush that is not sexual. There are romantic feelings without any sexual feelings, and the word crush is definitely used in those cases. Our community has come up with new words for some other types of crushes for different feelings that aren't romantic. I already mentioned briefly how we consider a platonic crush a squish. Well, the word for an alterous crush is, to keep this theme going with like onomatopoeia-like sounds, words that bring to mind sort of related squishy verbs. The word for an alterous crush is a mesh. I've felt meshes before, personally. I would spend time in my analytical mind wondering about if it was a crush or a squish. I wasn't sure. Part of me wished that this person I had a mesh on would have been compatible as a potential queer platonic partner for me, which is a type of relationship we'll be exploring and defining later on in this video. If you're one of the very first people to watch this video, thank you. Also, if it's the first week or so it's up, happy, I got caught on my dress. Happy Aromantic Spectrum Awareness Week. Please do take the time to subscribe so that you won't miss the next upload, which hopefully will be less than a month away. But especially in cases where I've felt a mesh for a monogamous allosexual person, let's say a heterosexual man, your average straight guy, or even if I felt the mesh for a friend I know well who happens to be a non-partnering type of aromantic individual, I mean, me, as a sex-averse ace who wants a committed partnership, if I knew there was no possibility of a future there, I still experienced a mesh internally. Which, when I feel it, it feels like all these positive emotions of affection and wanting to be closer friends with them, but it also felt like different than when I just want to be closer friends with someone else. It felt like a bit of a mix of admiration, trust, extreme comfort with them, feeling appreciated by them, feeling a longing to be partners with them, or even maybe to be family with them, like wishing I could build my family with them. But even if I couldn't get that future, the longing for more quality time with them, and there's just this intangible like flavor to how it all felt. I'm not sure it can be easily described as to why it's different than good friendship or why it's different than romance. It's just, you can kind of tell it's not fitting right with either of those two words. But yeah, part of it was just a longing to be able to build a life with them, even if I knew it wasn't possible. The longing was still there. For more on Alterous attraction, I do highly recommend you check out at least 2 of Artemis Munoz' videos. One being a short film they created titled Mesh, and the other being a video they created that went viral that was about Alterous attraction. I will briefly add here that in addition to it being a form of attraction, Alterous is also a way to feel like, for me at least, it feels like a way to fall in love. I swear some of us can feel alterous love, alterous affection, alterous desire to hold hands or something, where it's emotionally charged in a type of way that you feel like the word alterous is what fits best. Attraction isn't the only word that can follow alterous. Side note, I like the color orange for alterous things, and I was going to paint my nails for this video today, but I ran out of time. I like things like the orange heart emoji for alterous, for like expressing those feelings. Because red feels like it signifies romantic, and yellow hearts are a friendship color in my world. Maybe because giving someone yellow roses is a well-known symbol of friendship. So combining red and yellow, you get orange, the color in between. And that feels like an alterous color to me. The alterous flags proposed often included red or yellow for similar symbolic reasons as well. Many other flag designers liked pinks, grays about the gray area, and various shades of blue. For many people, blue-gray represents alterous feelings, and someone else proposed a flag with light violet and lavender for alterous. I've fallen in love in an alterous way with 5 different people in my life so far, 4 of whom I was dating, and 1 of whom I was close friends with. It made me question my aromantic spectrum identity when it happened the first couple of times, which was before the term alterous was coined. But either way, ultimately, after I questioned that aromantic spectrum identity I hold, I feel sure now that I don't feel romantic stuff completely normatively. I feel confident in my gray arrow identity. So, oh yeah, it seems important to spell out and be specific about my own orientation labels at this point. I usually identify as a gray aromantic, gray panromantic, sex-averse, asexual person. Yes, it's a mouthful. Let me say it again. I identify as a gray aromantic, gray panromantic, sex-averse, asexual person. The gray panromantic part is because most people have never heard of Alterous, but in many ways pan-Alterous feels like it fits a little better than gray panromantic for what I feel. I'm pretty sure I don't feel any romantic attraction. It's all Alterous. But I guess Alterous and gray romantic experience is very overlapping anyway. It's like a romance adjacent thing regardless. And because I do desire committed partnership, I still resonate with the gray area nature of the gray aromantic label. My desire and interest in dating is allowed to affect my orientation label if I want it to. Aromantic not only implies the lack of romantic feelings, but most people would assume it means you don't want to date. And even though you can want a partner if you're aromantic, in my case, I like communicating the gray area immediately with the label I choose. Because to me, the fact that I so deeply desire partnership makes me different than the average aromantic person and makes me closer to more gray romantic people. So now, without further ado, I said we'd get to the relationships side of this, so here we go. Emotions can inspire what kind of relationship is desired with the person, but they don't have to do that. Plenty of allosexual people feel sexual attraction all the time for people that they wouldn't want to actually have sex with for any number of reasons. A good example is if someone is already in a committed monogamous relationship and has no intention of betraying their partner in that way. It doesn't mean they don't feel sexual attraction to a very attractive person they see on the street or on TV. Now, for another example, sometimes it's impractical to want a certain kind of relationship with the person because of the specific other things you actually want to be part of that relationship. Like if you want to have kids and the person you're feeling attraction for you already know doesn't want kids, you maybe actively don't want to start to build a future where you're incompatible on such an important issue. And there are certainly ways to end up in or choose to enter interpersonal relationships that are not motivated by attraction. While we do have a word, squish, for platonic crushes, everyone I've ever talked to has been in friendships that formed without both people feeling this intense draw to the other person first that they'd be able to identify as a form of platonic attraction. Some people never feel squishes, and some feel squishes very rarely, but many of these people have friends regardless of the lack of squishes. Other things happen that lead to friendships, like perhaps you spend a lot of time in the same vicinity as this other person, having conversations for practical reasons, and one day you realize you've become friends. But this expands beyond friendships. Aromantic people might choose, for reasons that aren't based on emotions of any kind, to enter into a romantic relationship. The aromantic person is choosing to enter a romantic relationship. They might have, for practical reasons, wanted a partner in life. And often, a person might not have known there were other choices besides a romantic partner for having a life partner. Or maybe they did know there were other types of life partnerships out there, at least theoretically, but they weren't going to count on ever finding one for themselves, and they thought a romantic partner would actually be something they would be happy with and maybe a lot easier to find. Or maybe they already had a romantic partner when they started to learn about the other types and they were happy enough in their relationship. Maybe they're very happy in their relationship. It really depends on the aromantic person. Another aromantic person may have entered into a romantic relationship based on other types of feelings, not realizing that they weren't romantic feelings. They might have thought they were normative romantic feelings. They didn't know they were aromantic at the time, and they were mistaking pretty much any of the other forms of attraction that we listed earlier as being romantic. Because this stuff can be quite confusing, and a lot of times it's all talked about together at the same time. So if you feel aesthetic attraction, think they're pretty, you think it's romantic. You feel sexual attraction, you assume it's always tied to romance because everyone always talks about them at the same time. You feel something like sensual attraction where you enjoy like cuddling, for instance, or you really like some aspect of physical touch with them, even if it's not sexual in some cases. You might have thought that was romantic inherently, but really it was like its own form of attraction and you actually were aromantic. There's so many possibilities. And this is fodder for a whole separate video, and I'm already diving a little too deeply into it because I can't help myself, but it really is fodder for a whole separate video to talk about these nuances of what's possible. But the point is that queer platonic relationships sometimes are things people enter into because they're feeling a type of feeling that doesn't fit into the box of romantic, and it doesn't fit into the box of friendship. Or maybe to be more clear, you're feeling a type of emotion. Feeling a type of feeling is a little redundant. But sometimes you do enter into queer platonic relationships because the feelings you feel aren't quite romantic, and they also aren't quite friendly or friendish or friend feelings. They're not platonic, or they're not only platonic. Maybe they're alterous, maybe they're something else. And other times, people choose a queer platonic model for their relationship for reasons that have nothing to do with their emotions. Sometimes people enter into this relationship type that, actually defies boxes on purpose, the queer platonic type of relationship, because romantic doesn't properly describe what type of relationship it is, and neither does friendship. It's not because the feelings aren't romantic or friend-related feelings. It's all about looking at what the relationship consists of, rather than looking at internally at the emotions of one or more people in the relationship, one or both or three if it's poly or whatever. It's looking at the elements of the dynamic between the people, the behaviors or actions or choices about what they do together and what they don't do, and deciding if romantic fits to describe the relationship or platonic fits, or if neither quite fits. I have so much more to say on this topic. So if you're interested in my continuation of discussing queer platonic dynamics, really diving into what they are, and also me sharing my own personal experiences with them, please do check out the part 2 video. It'll be linked right here in the end screen as soon as the video is up on YouTube. I want to wish a huge thank you to everyone who already liked and subscribed to my brand new YouTube channel. Please do subscribe if you haven't yet. See you at the part 2 video.